Welcome to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays. We're at the Coach in Farringdon today, and I'm going to be talking to Ben Walton from Wavemaker about all things retail media and commerce. So sit back and enjoy. Hi Ben.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. You all right?
Yeah, very good. So welcome to Retail Media Thursdays. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Wavemaker?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm head of commerce at Wavemaker. Really responsible for accelerating our capabilities in the commerce space across particularly like retail media, Amazon, and increasingly actually social commerce, and we'll touch on that later on, as well as obviously driving growth for kind of key clients. So we have a lot of FMCGs, Danone, Campari, Colgate, so we're across all those brands as well.
Cool. And do you want to tell us a little bit about a peak or a highlight of the week so far? It could be professional or personal, whatever you want to share.
Highlight of the week. We had a really good conversation with Colgate actually around how we integrate retail media into annual planning, which is certainly one of the aspirations, and we'll touch on it in a bit around how we start to scale retail media and accelerate it, which is actually that's a fundamental part of what we need to do. So that's quite an exciting conversation to be having.
Cool. And we're at the Coach in Farringdon, so why did you choose this pub?
Why the Coach? So I spent a lot of time at 8 years at Media Brands, which is actually our initiative, which is just around the corner. So frequented a lot of the pubs in this area. This was obviously one of them. But in terms of, tying back into the theme today, that was pretty much the start of commerce and retail media during that period when Amazon started to scale their ad offering, and there was kind of Criteo that started to come into market for search. So spent a lot of time here. Plus, actually, it was the birth of e-commerce, I suppose. So that was my first foray into this space.
Nice. So you manage social commerce and retail media at Wavemaker.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see those two strategies kind of working in synergy together? And how do you envisage that changing or evolving in the coming months and years?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's something we're figuring out. There is, they are very different spaces and platforms in terms of how you show up and how you talk to audiences. There are obviously synergies in terms of, we can understand what products are, driving the growth in retail media and Amazon, and we can kind of apply that to, social commerce like TikTok when you're building things like TikTok Shop. But there are also nuances, right? It doesn't mean that there are what works on the grocers or Amazon will work in those spaces. So there are things that you can take and apply, but equally you have to start to build bespoke strategies, not only creatively, but also the products that you utilize as well. So there are synergies. We're probably figuring that out at the minute, but yeah.
Cool. And so you've talked about social platforms and kind of involving those within your off-site capabilities. When we talk about other off-site opportunities like streaming and streaming DSP, for example, how are you starting to integrate those into your wider strategies as well with the brands that you're working with?
We've done a fair bit of testing this year, particularly with like Meta and social. We find it works really well in driving incrementality. It's actually been a real big core component now because, beyond search, which is increasingly competitive and it's still fundamental, actually the off-site component is what gives you the incremental sale. So we've kind of started to prove that. Obviously the next evolution of that is, as you say, into other channels. What we need to figure out is a couple of things. One is like, what is that optimal channel mix, which actually isn't a retail media problem. It's something that we were been solving for many years in the media world. But also by doing that, it throws up a fair bit of complexity around measurement as well, which again is something that we have very recently figured out and working with the retail media networks to solve, particularly around like attribution. is the fundamental challenge.
So let's talk a little bit more about measurement. So obviously, as we move more to that omni-channel, more full funnel approach, we know that brands are already kind of grappling with how to measure their sponsored search activity. How do you see them with the challenges around measurement on a more full funnel, omni-channel approach to retail media?
Yeah, I don't know if as an industry we've been exposed to those challenges yet. Something actually, one of our clients, because we are now testing omni-channel retail media, it's actually a problem that we are now trying to solve. So what I mean by that is that once you go off-site and introduce more channels, you can't dedupe the sales. Sure. Because in the Tesco or Nectar ecosystem, right, they control the media, control the audiences, they can see where those audiences have been exposed to and bought, but they don't get that data back from Meta or from a trade desk or from anything else. So we're having to delve into traditional measurement solutions, but what's really great if you've got the granularity of the sales in store and online from the likes of Tesco and Nectar. So yeah, we call it GeoMM, right? Okay. So what you can do is start to look at control and expose groups, but doing it on a postcode level, and we can attribute that back to sales in store and online. So we're having to apply traditional measurement solutions to retail media once you get out of the Criteo and the on-site space, if that makes sense. So it's complex, but retail media is complex, right? Of
course, that leads me perfectly onto my next question, which is, around the challenges that you're facing, and that expansion of retail media is still ever growing, and so that creates challenges around like organizational structure, budget, and planning you've already mentioned. So how are you facing those challenges at Wavemaker with the clients that you look after?
Yeah, I think so. It's something that we've been figuring out for the last year with shopper teams, and some of our clients have like digital commerce teams. So we've been building from search into on-site display and then experiment with off-site. So we're slowly moving up that funnel, but it's ways of working and ways of working with shopper teams and enums is something that at the start there was a lot of crossover, right? Particularly as retailers obviously were talking to shopper teams and as well as talking to us, so some of those lines are starting to blur, right? When you've got like scan and shop and whatever else, and some of that on-site display stuff. So we've been, I guess where we've got to now is clearly defined roles and responsibilities around who does what. Sure. We're never going to do the traditional shopper stuff, right? But certainly anything that is audience driven, that is, I guess, digital, we are starting to manage, and the shopper teams are still managing those relationships through the JVP. So I think we've got to a good place there. I guess where the evolution of that is then how you integrate it into brand teams, and that's where you start to get real crossover, because obviously we know we can put that data into ITVX, Channel 4, Meta, Trade Desk, but actually where does that all sit? So that's the next stage, I guess, of like education with the clients. Of it's not really, I guess it's breaking the funnel a little bit, because it's not a brand and performance thing, right? So we're trying to figure out budgets and aligning on budgets. Where does that budget come from? To, I guess, not duplicating plans. There's no point having two social plans or two ITVX plans, right? So we're trying to, part of that is integrating into annual planning, so it can be planned as a part of the plan, not this thing over here, right? That creates a lot of extra work and duplication.
And so we've talked about measurement a little bit. Another big implication is obviously around that omni-channel full funnel measurement, and we know that brands are already grappling with measuring sponsored search and how to prove the value of that. So how do you see that approach to more full funnel measurement on an omni-channel?
Yeah, so it's a real challenge actually. So it's something that we have fairly recently been exposed to as we are expanding into omni-channels, right, through retail media. So what we've kind of discovered is that whilst if it's in that kind of search or retailer ecosystem, they can dedupe sales. If you go outside of that and run more than one channel, so it's great. It's a great story that you can push that audience into Meta, and you can attribute back to a store or online sale. Once you start to layer in other channels, actually they can't distinguish between, it starts to double count. So it knows that you've been exposed to a programmatic ad and a meta ad, and therefore you get 2 sales. So we're doing a lot of work actually with both Nectar and Tesco to work on an attribution model where we can start to understand incrementality and then start to dedupe sales between different channels. And our solution, we're doing that on a exposed model, which is actually very much a kind of traditional measurement model, which is kind of interesting. But the great thing about working with the retailers is that the granularity of the data that you can get back. So we can obviously do that on a non-exposed, but we can do that on a real kind of granular level, postcode level, and attribute that to an in-store or online sale. So it's complex, and it's something I think that we are figuring out now, which is really important as we look to scale further in the future, that we can apply a robust measurement framework to omni-channel retail media.
So if you had a magic wand that for tech offerings like Sky, for example, what would you wish for from those tech platforms in terms of solutions to help with your commerce media?
Yeah, I think in the space where I suppose you operate, there's definitely it's still fairly clunky, right? We talk about the industry being fairly nascent. I think you do a great job in driving automation in that space. There's 2 things actually. One is probably how do we start to get better insights?
Sure.
And we talked about Profitero earlier, but how do we surface some of those insights that we can then activate again? So things like how are search behaviours evolving over time within that retail space, and how do you feed in like seasonality, all that stuff that you kind of find out in that Google space, that richness there, consumer behaviours, how do you understand that through the search data? And then I think there's obviously increased automation of, I guess, retailers and platforms. It's still a bit clunky where you can't move budget around seamlessly, right? The wallets that are all in place, it's quite hard to have that automation. I think if we can get to a solution where we can quite quickly move, money from Asda to a Tesco, or even down to a SKU level, because actually some SKUs perform better on retailers than others.
Sure.
Actually, I think that's where you guys can really kind of help drive some of that automation and speed and agility, really.
Like that budget fluidity is a big thing, I think. Yeah, great. Are you ready to move on to some more quick fire questions?
Go on then.
Cool. So any book or TV series recommendations that you've uncovered recently?
You put me on the spot now. Not really. Oh, actually, my kids have been away, so I've had a bit of spare time. But I kind of went back into Netflix and looked at some movies that I'd kind of seen, not really watched. But I watched Boiling Point. Has anyone seen?
Okay,
Boiling
yeah,
Point?
that's good. That's like all one shot, isn't it?
Yeah, quite an intense film. Stephen Graham, anything that he generally does is pretty good. But one shot.
Yeah.
The ups and downs of being a chef, right? So that was quite an interesting watch.
I think there's a lot of comparisons we can make to managing a commerce team to being a chef in a hot kitchen.
Maybe.
So next question, the weather's been pretty rubbish recently. We've got a bit of sunshine today, but if you could pick any holiday destination or a desert island you'd want to be on, where would it be?
I've never been to South America, so I think going somewhere like that would be good to explore.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what would you be drinking if you're in South America? It doesn't have to be alcoholic. Drink of choice.
I don't know, something South American.
Okay, like a caipirinha maybe or something like that. Nice. And food of choice while you're there, or like a desert island meal? Doesn't have to be South American.
Desert island meal. Okay. I'm sick of pizzas these days, so it's probably go back to my northern roots of good old fish and chips or something.
Nice. Traditional. I love it. Cool. And Desert Island Disc, what's your like go-to song? If you had one song on your playlist on the desert island, what would it be?
Actually, something that's been this recently. I think, I've discovered it wasn't it was before that, off the back of Stranger Things, but Running Up the Hill by,
Great tune. Yeah, I can't remember who sings it now. You put me on the spot.
It put me on the spot. But that seems to be like a go-to song, once you get back into it.
It got famous again recently from Stranger Things. It's back in the charts.
Yeah.
Nice. And then final question. So if you could spend that time on the desert island with anyone famous, dead or alive, who would it be? Or multiple people, if you want more than one.
You really have put you on the spot with these questions. So I've got two
quick fire questions. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, look, I play a lot of tennis, have done for many years, so it'd have to be someone like Federer. I think would be a good person to chat to.
He seems like a good bloke as well.
He does,
so
yeah.
Good choice on both accounts.
Plays a lot of table tennis, which is quite a fun thing.
I mean, if you get a table tennis table on a desert island, then you're having a great time. Yeah, excellent. Well, Ben, thank you very much. It's been great chatting to you. And
you. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thank you.